Welcome into the show. I'm Chase Senior, host of Philadelphia Eagles. Now he is Trace Moustakis, the host of the Broncos Breakdown, and we're going to preview this Week 5 matchup between the Eagles and the Broncos. By the way, this is going to go up on my channel, Eagles Now, as well as the Broncos Breakdown. So we have Eagles fans watching, we have Broncos fans watching, and here this season, want to do a switch up with our coverage. I think we have so many talented people here at Chat Sports who know ball, are passionate about ball, and specifically with these matchups, when we have hosts who cover both these teams, I think it's a very insightful preview to do to give you a peek inside this matchup from both sidelines here. And so the Eagles are 4-0, Trace. The Broncos 2-2. Obviously, a lot of expectations for Denver going into this year, but this is really interesting. They're off to kind of a slow start, but this has been the MO for Sean Payton. I believe he's 30-30 in his career in September, and so he kind of takes that first month, like Nick Sirianni, to gauge where his team is at. Try to find an identity. What are your takeaways so far, what the Broncos have been able to do? 2 wins over non-playoff teams, 2 losses against some playoff caliber teams this year.
So I'd be lying to you, Chase, and by the way, thanks for having me on the show. I'd be lying if I said that the start of the season wasn't what Broncos fans expected. We have talked all offseason, especially with the additions in free agency, going out and getting a guy like Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, other players like Evan Engram. We expected so much from the players that we added, and it's kind of fallen flat a little bit. But as you alluded to, Sean Payton is notoriously just kind of mid in September, you know, that 30-30 record. But I think that's a testament to how complex his offense is. And as the team starts to really get a hold of not only the play calling, but also kind of like the schemes that Sean Payton is used to running, it takes a little bit of time. The one area that I will say that even I have been kind of wrong about was how Bo Nix has started. He's been a player that quite literally has not been able to put a good, complete game together until you saw it against the Cincinnati Bengals. Could that be the right upward trajectory? Sure, we like to think so, but against the Titans, he was awful. Against the Colts, he was really good, and then kind of regressed again against the Chargers. So we just don't really know what kind of Bo to expect right now, although we do know that the Broncos' offensive line is fantastic, and the running game seems to really be getting going with J.K. Dobbins.
I think Eagles fans know a thing or two about a team or players not being able to put together a full 60 minutes, a full 4 quarters, because that's been an issue for the Philadelphia Eagles so far, even though they are 4-0. And it has been notable that Bo Nix has kind of struggled to start the year. At Oregon, he didn't make a lot of mistakes. His final year there, 45 touchdowns, 3 picks. He was also highly accurate, set a record for completion percentage at 77.4%. And then in his rookie year, 29 touchdowns, 12 picks. This year, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. So the pass game has been slow a little bit to get going. And then he did play a little bit better against a Bengals team that without Joe Burrow is really just a skeleton of what they actually are when Joe Burrow is playing. One thing that's been a pleasant surprise for Denver this year is their run game. They're 5th in rushing yards per game, averaging more than $140 on the ground per matchup. J.K. Dobbins has had some Achilles issues in his career. Last year, he was solid with the Chargers, then he hurt his knee. He comes to Denver late in the offseason. He's been really good. R.J. Harvey's been really good. You got to be pretty impressed with the ground game for Denver so far.
No doubt. And I think the reason is because they've kind of got a yin and yang thing going on. J.K. Dobbins is your more power back, runs a little bit more north to south, tries to exploit those A and B gaps when he's running, whereas R.J. Harvey fits that joker mold that Sean Payton likes to call, which is kind of like that hybrid Alvin Kamara, Darren Sproles, Philly legend style of running back. But the way that I view this as is that Bo Nix loves to swing that ball outside in the passing game to R.J. Harvey, and then it's a ground and pound style of offense when it comes to J.K. Dobbins. I think one thing, though, that you're going to be looking forward to seeing here from this Denver offense is Sean Payton's going to want to throw the ball against this Philadelphia Eagles defensive line, which notoriously rushes 4, as I'm sure you've known as the Eagles host. But I look at this and I say, if the Broncos are going to take the W over the Philadelphia Eagles, you're going to have to be able to establish the passing game. There is no room for error against the defending Super Bowl champions.
This Broncos offensive line is also a terrific unit, and we were talking about this prior to doing the show, obviously. For football fans who love great football matchups, X's and O's, strengths against weaknesses, coaching staff against coaching staff. I do think Denver, Philadelphia, one of the top matchups across the board here in week 5.
No doubt.
And this Broncos offensive line last year kind of came out of nowhere to solidify themselves as one of the best units in the NFL. That's really carried over into 2025. They might not have like big names along the offensive line for casual fans out there, but they do have some really good players. Quinn Meinerz, Garett Bolles, 2 studs up front.
Without a doubt. And Garett Bolles, fun fact for you, through week 3, I'd have to go back and look after the reporting for week 4, but was allowing the least amount of pressure rate as a left tackle in the league. So he was at like 1.9%. I think what you've looked at with this Broncos offensive line is the continuity that these 5 have together, because they're so used to playing with each other. They're already in that year 2, year 3 scheme with Sean Payton. They know exactly how Sean Payton likes his offensive lines to be, which is really, really good in pass protection. And maybe every once in a while can maybe kind of dip back a little bit during run protection. Although I think you've really seen a commitment, especially against the Cincinnati Bengals, to running the football early and often against a much weaker defensive line.
The Eagles have won 13 straight games at home in South Philly at Lincoln Financial Field. The Broncos 1-7 in their last 8 road games away from Mile High. This is also a game where the Eagles have the rest advantage and they have the body clock advantage. The Broncos played on Monday night at home. They have to travel across the country to Philadelphia, and obviously it's a 1 p.m. Eastern kick. Is there anything to the Broncos' struggles on the road, or is it one of those weird and fluky stats?
Like I've said before, the Broncos have literally shot themselves in the foot multiple times this season. You lose on a game-losing field goal off some bogus leverage penalty against the Colts, and then the very next week, boneheaded mistake from Sean Payton not going for it on 4th and short, punting the ball away to Justin Herbert, only to give him another 2 minutes to stroll down the field, kick a game-winning field goal as time expires. So I don't look at the Broncos' struggles on the road necessarily as they're doing something wrong. It's more self-inflicted wounds. This Denver Broncos defense, as I'm sure we're going to talk about later on in this episode, is outstanding, specifically with this pass rush. If they're able to clean that, the penalties up, the clock management up, it should be a very, very tough head-to-head matchup.
I do want to talk about this Broncos defense, and we're going to do that on the other side of our sponsor, Prize Picks, which is coming up here in a moment. I do have some big news, though, as we record this show on Thursday, October 2nd. Dallas Goedert, Eagles star tight end, did not practice on Wednesday, did participate in practice on Thursday. Obviously, his role in this offense is so important because he's a great blocker, and his backup replacements are awful blockers like Grant Calcaterra and Kylan Granson, but he's also such a focal point in the pass game where he's really become one of the top all-around tight ends in the NFL over time, but so underrated and undervalued for a lot of Eagles fans out there. He has a profound impact on this Eagles offense. So him most likely being able to play in this game as he injured his knee that he suffered a little bit earlier this year would be huge for Philadelphia. It's also big from a matchup component here, Moose, because the Broncos linebackers without Dre Greenlaw still on IR, Alex Singleton, probably their best linebacker, but he's not a great coverage guy. He's utilized more as a blitzer. So if there is an area for this Eagles offense to attack a weakness for Denver, it's got to be Denver's linebacking unit right now, right?
There is no doubt. The one area that I have been clamoring for not only George Paton, the Broncos GM, and Sean Payton to just figure out is this middle linebacker room, because Drew Sanders, one of the guys they drafted out of Arkansas a couple years ago, he can't stay on the field. He's never healthy, coming off a short-term IR pretty soon. Dre Greenlaw moved over to short-term IR. Now you've got a backup in Justin Stranad that is filling out that role that Dre Greenlaw was supposed to play in. If you could attack that middle of the field against the Denver Broncos, specifically with how stout this Philadelphia Eagles run game is, trust me when I say this, you're going to move the ball early, you're going to move the ball often, and it will be a very, very tough thing for the Denver Broncos to defend.
All right, let's get to our sponsor, our friends at Prize Picks, making this Eagles-Broncos preview possible. Appreciate all of you for hanging out here with us, but also appreciate Prize Picks for making it all go down. This is the #1 fantasy sports app. You can win big up to 2,000 times your money. Available in 45-plus states all across America. And right now, when you play your first $5 lineup, when you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS, you get $50 instantly in lineups. There's also a couple of new features here with with Prize Picks, it's the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Jalen Hurts' pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns. Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. You can also follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in just one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner like producer Chip, or just someone whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. Here's our 3-pick power play for Sunday's game. Let's go with A.J. Brown more than 55.5 receiving yards. J.K. Dobbins has been a stud this year, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. And I think this number is very low for an Eagles pass game that's really trying to get it going. Jalen Hurts more than 180.5 passing yards. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So we talked earlier about this Broncos defense, a spectacular unit coordinated by Vance Joseph. Last year, they were also one of the top defenses in the NFL, like the Eagles. Here's where they rank in a couple of big categories. Number 2 in points per game, 10th in yards per game, 8th in yards per play, 4th on third down conversions, number 1 in the red zone, whereas the Eagles offense, number 1 in red zone touchdown conversion rate at 100%. They've been inside the red area, inside the 20, 11 times. They've scored touchdowns on all 11 of those trips, and so that's a nuanced matchup to look out for here in Week 5. There's also this, too. This Broncos defensive line can really get after it here. And I have some really fascinating numbers that I want to go through here because this Broncos defense is number 1 in sacks with 15, number 1 in quarterback hits with 41, and number 1 in pressure rate at 47.1%. Moose, we think of this Eagles offensive line as a great unit. A lot of players up front who are making a lot of money. Outside of Jordan Mailata, and because Lane Johnson's been in and out of games with injuries the last 2 weeks, this is an Eagles offensive line that has really struggled. 25th in yards before contact per carry, 27th in run stuff rate, 22nd in run block win rate, 24th in pressure rate, 26th in pass block win rate. So another good matchup here, Moose. It's the Broncos defensive line against a struggling Eagles offensive line, and we know this Eagles offense as a whole has been able to really find a groove. They haven't been rhythmic at all this year.
No, I totally understand what you're saying, and this is literally my storyline of the game right here, is the Broncos pass rush versus the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. Who's going to win that matchup? Highlighting a couple of players here on the Broncos for you. Nick Bonito, who is the most recent paid edge rusher, $106 million in that total contract that he got, which I feel was kind of a team-friendly deal that he ended up taking. Did you know he's got 27 pressures this year so far? The Eagles' big 3 on their defensive side, I believe, have 29. So you're looking at this and you're kind of like, there's going to be a lot of players that go after Jalen Hurts and try to get as much pressure into that backfield as quickly as possible. And I think that's a testament to Vance Joseph's defense. What he likes to do is switch it up, and that's what makes it so hard to cover, is basically he'll act like he's sending 7 or 8 guys in the box, and then he'll, show blitz, drop 4 more back in coverage, but then the very next play will show the exact same front and then send the house at him.
Yep.
You just don't know what you're getting from him as a defensive coordinator. So there's a lot of talent highlighted by Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers. It is a really, really stout unit, and it's going to be something that I'm looking forward to seeing if they want to beat the Eagles this coming Sunday.
And Todd Bowles, obviously, the head coach for the Buccaneers, blitzes a lot.
Yep.
Going into last week, second highest blitz rate in the NFL. I thought in the first half, Jalen Hurts, Kevin Patullo, Nick Sirianni, this Eagles offense, they had a good plan against the blitz. Then obviously in that second half, things really fell apart. What Vance Joseph will do, as Moose had said, he's going to mix it up. They're going to play man. They're going to play zone. He's also known as a blitz-heavy type of defensive mind. This Eagles offense, especially Jalen Hurts, has struggled throwing against zone because sometimes Hurts can struggle to throw in between the numbers, in between the hashes. And part of the reason why A.J. Brown hasn't been able to get going is because teams are putting a safety over top of A.J., knowing that he's so good against man, and they're playing a lot of zone. And speaking of A.J. Brown, this is one of the matchups that you just can't wait to see, right? A.J., probably a top 3, top 5 wide receiver in the game against Patrick Surtain, reigning Defensive Player of the Year. I can't wait to see this matchup go down on Sunday.
Look, I think it should be highlighted here very quickly that Pat Surtain went up against the very best wide receiver in the NFL last week in Ja'Marr Chase, and he shut that man down.
Jake Browning stinks, but still
He does stink. He absolutely stinks. But Ja'Marr Chase, 8 targets, 5 receptions for 26 yards, averaging like 4.6 yards per reception. So if you're looking at what Pat Surtain offers, is he can do absolutely everything at a very, very high level. He's sticky in coverage. He mirrors routes really, really well, is great at flipping his hips and getting upfield. If, A.J. Brown wants to take the top off the defense, he is one of the very, very best. Here's what I'm interested in seeing. Are the Eagles going to do something where they put A.J. Brown, if they switch him onto Riley Moss, who has statistically been the most targeted corner in the NFL through 4 weeks? You saw Browning and T. Higgins go after Riley Moss early, and a couple of plays, multiple times this season, Riley Moss gets absolutely cooked. So you're going to want to at least exploit him in the passing game if you want success.
Yeah, and then there's Jahdae Barron, the rookie out of Texas, 20th overall pick, who's a good player. Look out for him. And then Talanoa Hufanga, the safety acquisition in free agency. He was an All-Pro a couple of years ago for the San Francisco 49ers. He's not that traditional ball-hawking, deep safety, center field type of safety like a Justin Simmons, who Eagles and Broncos fans know very well. He is a guy who's going to be utilized, and I'm not just saying this because of the hair or the Polynesian connection, like Troy Polamalu.
Yeah.
He's so good downhill, in the box, being around the ball, and in that sense, he's such a highly impactful player. And so when you think about the strengths and weaknesses for both these teams, the level of coaching, how much talent, the expectations for these two ball clubs, and what we've seen so far, again, going to be one of the top matchups here in Week 5, Denver Broncos, Philadelphia Eagles. Moose has a live show to do here on this Thursday, so we're going to let him run. Thanks to everybody watching on the Broncos Breakdown. Thanks for kicking it here on Philadelphia Eagles Now. Don't forget to subscribe on both channels. We're both going to be live for our watch parties. We'll catch you then.